All right. So here it is, Father's Day. And what's the date, Mom?
Today is
June 15th? 14th?
Is it the 16th today?
Whatever date. Father's Day, June of 2014.
It's the 14th.
Okay.
Is Father's Day supposed to be the first Sunday of June or the second Sunday?
Maybe it's supposed to be the second Sunday.
I know that 16th is Monday, so today must be
Okay,
the 15th.
this debate is fascinating, but we are interviewing Gammy.
Okay.
So my first question would be, I would like to know what your fondest memory is growing up as a kid in your house.
What?
What your fondest memory is growing up as a child.
Oh my! I think I was in another era, in another lifetime. Growing up as a child, there are memories.
Where did you live?
Huh?
Where were you living? Let's say when you were 10 to 13, somewhere in there.
10 to 13?
Sure, or whenever you
New
remember.
Jersey. Well, no, because my lives, I'm making them plural because one of them, the earliest ones, living in what is now called Israel, which was then called Palestine, is such a different life and a different lifetime from what my life jumped into being the minute that we, as the little family of three, mother, baby sister, and I, left Palestine, and we jumped into that life, from that life, into a life of several months or weeks of traveling, which in itself is a different lifetime, and probably for some children never existed. But we were traveling from a place called Palestine to a place called the United States of America. Ta-da!
And so what would be your fondest memory from your childhood?
My
Fondest memory from your childhood.
But that's what I'm trying to say.
Oh.
That the childhood in itself was jumped, or not jumped, but puzzled out into three different situations. One, as a child living in Palestine. The other, as the same child traveling with my mother and younger sister for several weeks, going to the United States of America on ships and barges and trains, and then ship liners. A ship liner called the Aquitania, which was a very fancy liner crossing the Atlantic Ocean and coming to the United States of America. And that lifetime, that little chunk of lifetime, was so unique that it has stayed in my mind longer, I think, than my life was when I left Palestine as a child, and stronger memories of my life as it started when I came as a child, again, still same child, jumping to the third batch, I would say, within that time period, coming into the United States of America.
Who was your best friend?
Who was my best friend? I didn't have a best friend.
You didn't have a best friend in childhood?
I
Bummer.
But, playtimes were not that often. Playtimes consisted of after school was out,
Mm-hmm.
when I got home, when I got to go home. After recess and maybe after school playtime on the uh, um, uh, school grounds,
Mm-hmm.
I would go directly home, and there was my little sister and my mother and I at home. And at that time, I remember that it might have been a time of year when it was getting dark.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't any after school with other playmates on the playground place.
Were your parents strict?
Were my parents strict? My parents were strict from the standpoint of adhering to laws of the Jewish religion.
Mm-hmm.
That strictness was unique among strictnesses because it was not only be good, don't lie, don't cheat, don't this, don't that. It was the laws of the Jewish religion of eating certain foods at certain times and being disallowed to eat certain foods between one time and another.
So you were kosher?
We were kosher, very kosher. Now, do you know what kosher means?
I do.
Okay, because the adherence to kosher was something that was so automatic, so unique, that other children not of the same religion would not know what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But
Did you have a positive experience with Judaism?
Well, your questions are so vast. Each
They are.
question is so encompasses so many areas of behavior.
Right.
Of eating food properly, food properly, depending upon whether it was in the realm of items that were made from milk and other items that were made from meat. And the law, in adhering to the kosher law of eating, when one eats meat, for instance.
That's loud, Dad.
Pardon me?
Oh, I was just telling my dad that was loud. I'm sorry, go on.
When one eats meat, one must not eat anything made of milk or a milk product for 6 hours thereafter. However, when one imbibes or drinks milk or milk products, you don't need to wait 6 hours. After 2 hours are up, you may eat meat.
Okay.
That's an adherence in the way of eating kosher food.
Gotcha.
That is tantamount in the Jewish religion.
Okay. All right, I want to move on. Tell me your first love.
Are you talking about your heartthrob in love with a
Yes.
little boy?
Yes.
Or
But first, you can remember of either a crush or your first love.
no, I don't see crushes.
Okay, so no crushes.
Don't see crushes. Don't see trying to get into high school years, and I honestly don't.
Okay, so tell me about your love story with Bupa. How you met.
Well,
Tell me the whole story. With Bupa. Tell me about your Bupa love story.
that's a whole long story. Do you want the whole long
I want the whole long story. That's why I'm taping. I would like to have it permanently on video.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to give it to you, but
Okay.
you could check with Howie because he has it videotaped.
Mm-hmm.
When I was visiting in Berkeley,
Mm-hmm.
probably for one of the earliest times when I came and stayed
Mm-hmm.
for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And what did what story did I tell?
You're gonna tell your Bupa love story, how you met, how you fell in love, and where we all came from.
That's an easy story to tell. Okay. Um, the Bupa love story, I must tell you, Todd,
Yes.
was something you wanted me to tell Tina
Mm-hmm.
when you and Tina took me out to dinner at the Chinese restaurant, Mandarin China.
I have heard the story myself. I love the story. I just want it on video.
And
So
what?
I just want it on video so I can watch the video and get every detail because I'm forgetting details as I go, and and from time to time I've told people about my grandparents and their love story and how great it is, and then I just want to know all the details.
Well, Todd said to Gammy, I have a new girlfriend, a very special girl. She's really very special to me, and I want her to hear the story of how you and Bappa met and and pursued a love story. And so we want to take you to dinner, and you took me to dinner at Mandarin China when it was young and flourishing,
Mm-hmm.
and I told you the story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I said before, you can have it already taped and spoken for already when I made told that same story
To Howie.
Howie's video.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you want to move on because you've told the story already?
I don't care. I don't mind telling
Yeah.
the story.
Okay, go for it.
If that's what you want.
Sure, I'd love to have it.
Well, after we'll get the story, jump back in the story to to Bappa and not me, because that's where the story starts.
Okay.
After Gil graduated from college and needed to make a living, he had graduated from University of Washington in Seattle in economics, but what do you do with economics as a specialty, as uh, when you want to make a living at the 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 heat of the days of depression,
Mm-hmm.
when money was hard to earn and hard, and a way to make a living was hard to decide on.
Mm-hmm.
If you hadn't learned and studied some specific um, career, like being an architect or being a teacher or being a doctor or whatever, if you had not some sort of really great specialty after the initials of your name, uh, what do you do? How do you make a living? Well, it turned out that Buppa's family had always been in the trades, as they used to call it. They were always in retail,
Mm-hmm.
uh, having, um, owning, or working for retail stores, and so learning how to be a retailer, how to um, be of the merchandise when you were in retail selling, and also perhaps how to create a retailer of yourself, a merchant able to sell in your own retail store establishment to the retail populace.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened that since Bupa graduated in the heat or the heart, it must have been the heat of the Depression, it was really hard to know, what kind of a specialty does a guy have if he hasn't studied to be a pharmacist, or if he hasn't studied to be an engineer, or if he hasn't studied to uh, build houses. What do you do? Well, how do you find a job? You can't carve, you can't build, you can't do electricity, you can't fix cars, you just don't know what are you going to do. You got to make a living, you got to earn some bread. And, well, where do you go? And so Bupa graduated from the University of Washington in Seattle, and it turned out that his older sister, Lillian, having gotten married several years before Gil graduated, and being pregnant, lost her husband in an automobile accident, and the husband was killed, and the sister is pregnant and going to have a baby, and it's the heat of the Depression, and I have to graduated from college, and what do I do? How do I do to help my sister live? Because she can't go to work. She's pregnant, and who hired pregnant women in those days?
Mm-hmm.
And so Gil saw a sign on a store window, help wanted, and it was a drugstore. And he walked in and said, I'd like to apply for the job of pharmacist. And they said to him, well, what pharmacy school did you graduate from? Uh-oh. No, I didn't graduate from a pharmacy, but I want to learn. We need a delivery boy.
Okay.
You want to go to work? Yep, I got to go to work. So he went to work and found that at that very moment, he really couldn't do anything except attend to the needs and welfare of his sister. And so he said, I'm not a pharmacist, but I'd like to work at this Rexall store, and whatever job you can give me, I'll take. And so they put him as a delivery boy and sweeper, and you come early and you sweep the sidewalk and you make the store look ship-shape, and then when the customers phone in or send in lists of groceries that they want, you assemble the groceries for the owner and put them into a little basket that you put on the or that is on the bike that you deliver in, and you deliver the groceries. In those days, believe me, lots of ladies had their groceries delivered. Nobody used if they had a car, nobody used their cars to go get groceries. They'd go to the store and they'd get groceries, or they couldn't get away and from home for some reason, and so they would phone in a grocery list or send in a grocery list to be delivered. And so Gil became a grocery delivery and learned the ways of the store. And after a while, he became a clerk. And then after a while, he said he didn't want groceries. He wanted to get into the higher upsmanship of maybe pharmacy. And so then he applied to these I think it was Rexall, but some others that were the most popular ones, and went to work in a pharmacy. Again, probably making deliveries and sweeping the sidewalk before school started, and before the stores were open, and making deliveries and learning that Lillian had to be taken care of. Lillian no longer had a husband, but she had a baby coming, and so he really hustled, and he made deliveries, and he did everything he could to keep her and him alive and waiting for the baby. And after that, the baby came, and here was poor Lillian with a little baby whom they named Earlene because the dead father's name was Earl, and so the little baby girl was named Earlene. And here is his sister, his older sister, with a baby, and she has no way to make a living. What are we going to do? So
How old did his sister live to? Lillian.
How old was his sister?
When she passed, yes.
Oh, Bob. Do you ever meet Bob Walkman?
Yes.
Of course. I don't know how old.
Okay, go on.
But I think maybe 65.
Okay, pretty young.
Anyway, it turned out then that Lillian, with her baby girl Earlene, and Sam, because Bupa's name is Gilbert Sam Jacob, and somehow or other, over the years, some of the people used to call him Sammy for his middle name, and went back to Lewistown, Montana. Lillian, with her baby Earlene, and her brother Sammy helping her, went back to Lewistown, Montana to raise the baby and have Grandma Anna Jacobs help take care of the baby, and named the baby Earlene after the father's name. And here is Sammy, really ill, but not everybody, but maybe members of the family used to call him Sammy when he was 3-4 years old. Is back in Lewistown, Montana in the middle of the Depression. How are you going to make a living? You have to earn money to live, to eat bread. So Gil helped out in the store, his father's and mother's retail kind of department store, we'll call it. There was a big sign on the outside of the building saying, Jacob's store, we dress the family.
Okay.
Or we something or other.
Okay.
Family. So Sammy went back with Lillian and the baby Earlene to Lewistown, Montana, and said, "Here, Mama, Anna Jacobs, help take care of the baby." And Mama Anna Jacobs had already become a real terrific sales lady at Jacob's store, but she would take the morning shift or the afternoon shift to take care of the baby while Lillian went to work at the store, and they would take turns raising Erlene and working at the store. That is to say, one would work in the afternoon, the other would work in the morning, stuff like that. What's a guy gonna do in the midst of depression with two women feeding a little girl and trying to make a living for them? And I got a retailing, merchandising degree in retailing, says Sammy Gill, and what am I going to do with it? Everybody's selling everything that's to be sold in Lewistown, Montana. I have nothing left to sell. I really don't want to be a retail merchant. I want to get a degree, a further degree, and be a, what was it now? I forgot the name of it.
A pharmacist, you mean? A pharmacist, or you?
No, we forgot about the pharmacist long
Oh,
ago.
oh, okay.
He wanted to teach at the university level. He wanted to what's the name?
A PhD or
Not PhD.
doctorate degree?
The degree.
Bachelor's degree?
No, he wanted to have a PhD
Okay.
and teach at Columbia.
Okay.
That's what he wanted to do, but he had to earn a living to go to school and so on. So he got himself a job working at a company that was a company that helped small merchants buy their merchandise for retailing. And many small merchants all over the country sort of belonged to this company to help them merchandise their stores. And so Gil decided that he knew merchandising from having been in the store, and he said to this merchandising company, can I help place orders for the little merchants all over the country and have the job of merchandising for the stores? And so because that's not ultimately what he wanted to do, he wanted to go to Columbia, but if he went and did graduate work at Columbia, he could have a almost part-time, full-time job helping to purchase for small retail merchants for this company. And you know, so many years have passed that I have forgotten the name of the company, but if I wake up in the middle of the night and remember, I'll call you and tell you.
Okay.
But it was an important merchandising company and gave him enough time to take classes at Columbia while he worked and earned a living. So he had to pay his tuition and living expenses, and went to work at this company. By the time that he was doing all this, he had also, back to Lewistown, Montana, decided that he couldn't go to school and work in New York City and provide for himself and his needs unless he got a job in New York too. So he went to work for this merchandising company to help supply, little merchants help supply their goods for their little stores, and went to work at Columbia and went to school at the same time at Columbia University. Intending by this time to be an economist. He wanted to teach economics in college.
Okay.
And that was his decision. He didn't want to be a retailer. He wanted to be but he had to provide himself with enough food for tuition, living expenses, and studying. And so he got this job as this big merchandising company and provided that for himself, and was taking classes at Columbia. But in the meantime, in order to be able to afford that, he had to have an income. So he had opened a very small retail women's apparel store back home in Indiana, but not Indiana, Montana.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to be a little facetious here. He opened a women's apparel store, and because in Lewistown, Montana, there was no such specialty store. There were the parents' general store. There was another, maybe J.C. Penney's had opened in Lewistown, but a small community who took care, Lewistown, and probably just still does, the needs of the people who have ranches surrounding the little town.
Mm-hmm.
Ranchers who had sheep and cows and grew corn and hay and merchandised brought in the produce to the big stores who had opened in the bigger little communities surrounding them, and would sell their groceries or their corn, so to speak. And corn was a great big favorite of Bupa's, and he wasn't Bupa then. Anyway, so Bupa, Sammy Gilbert, is in New York, having gotten himself a job working at this big merchandising company, and enrolling at Columbia University and taking classes. But in the meantime, he's got to make a living at this merchandising company. But in the meantime, that's not enough. So he had opened a tiny little store, a unique store for that town, of a ladies' apparel, but young women, not the kind of clothes that all the ladies who were ladies and who were married and kids had, but the kind of store that appealed to young girls, almost out of high school, getting ready to go to college, wanting to buy nice-looking clothes for when they went to the big city in college. And so he opened a little store and decided, what kind of a name am I going to give this place? Because it's very unusual, but I can't think of anything unusual. But then it turned around that his sister, Lil, came home with a big belly full of a little baby girl. And what are we going to name the baby girl? And the baby was supposed to be named after whatever the baby was going to be, a girl or a boy. And the baby was a girl. And what are we going to name the girl? And then, gosh, if we named the girl, we can name him after her father. And his name was Earl, but that's a boy's name. Why don't we name her Earlene? And so along came Earlene, and we're going to have really hot stuff. Now, the word was not hot stuff in those days, but some kind of unique and unusual store in Lewistown that appealed only to girls graduating from high school, going to college, wanting to look really sharp in the big city, and but we have to have a nice, unique name for that kind of store and that kind. And what can we name her? Name her that's unusual. And they looked in the dictionaries and the names of dictionaries and couldn't find any name for a girl that was unique enough. But the baby that was born had to be named after her father. That's the law. That's the Jewish law. And so they named her Earlene. Oh, that's a nice name for a store, too. So Gil named his really fancy little store. Believe me, if you see a picture, and you will, of the tiny little store right next to the barber shop, probably half space. You know how there's one locale, but that it could be separated.
Mm-hmm.
You retail guys know. You can have a big store
Mm-hmm.
and turn it into a two stores, or make it a little bit bigger and have 4 stores or what have you. Anyway, so in this little 1/4 of a store, there came to be a store that had really cute, only that in those days they didn't use the word cute. Had to be some other name for a store that had really cute dresses for girls who are going off to college or graduating from high school and going to proms and going to all kinds of other activities, colleges that were sponsoring teas and things like that, trying to invite and interest girls going to school, college. And so they decided to name the store the Earlene Shop, named after the baby's father,
Right.
but a girl's name, and unusual. And so Gil opened this store and named it after his niece Earlene, and called it the Earlene Shop. And then
Okay,
they made up
Gammy, I'm getting close on my videos that I had left. Can we fast forward to when you actually met Bupa?
I just have to tell you
Okay.
that if it were Bupa,
Or for Gil, or Sammy Gill.
yeah,
Yes.
he wouldn't just name a store.
Yes.
He had to have a motto.
Yes.
So his motto was, if you want to be seen, shop Earlene.
That's great.
That's
Love it.
the end of that story.
All right.
Okay, what else do you want to know?
So when you guys first met?
Fast forward.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming back after several years of graduating, coming back and wanting to go back to college and get a degree in economics. And where does a guy go except New York? You know, Montana isn't good enough. Now, it's good enough for farmers, but not good enough for a good degree in economics. So you go to New York, to Columbia University. What else do you want to know?
No,
on the way,
yes.
his cousin, his best pal, Bill, had gotten himself a job working as secretary in Washington, D.C. for the senator from Montana. He was the secretary of the senator from Montana. And his best friend, who had gotten himself the job, was named Bill. And he was living in Washington, D.C. So leave it to Gil, if he's going to go to Columbia University in New York City, driving all the way from western Montana to the east in New York, why not stop in Washington, D.C. and visit with Bill for a while? You know, in those days, things were slower. You didn't take a cab when you wanted to come from the state of Washington or the state of Montana to go to New York. You drove. You bought yourself a car. Wait, you stopped in Michigan and you bought yourself a green Chevy, and you had the green Chevy to drive yourself from Michigan to New York City. But why go directly to New York City? You're just traveling the country. Why not see the country? Drive yourself to Washington, D.C. Okay, I have a friend in Washington, D.C. I won't have to pay any rent. A real pal. And anyway, so Gil stopped in Washington, D.C. to spend a couple weeks with his best friend Bill, secretary to the senator from Montana, and decided, well, I'm here, I'll spend a couple weeks with Bill. And Bill was a busy fella, but he was a very handsome fella. Lots of gals were after him, and the telephone was a very popular way of connecting with one another, male and female. And so there were lots. What have we got now here? A cat?
No, Rapallo's here.
Huh?
Rapallo's here.
Rapallo?
Yeah.
Rapallo makes that noise? Ah, yes.
Okay, I have 3 minutes left. Tell us when you first met Bupa.
That's the end of the first part of the story. I met Bupa because he was talking on the telephone to a friend of his friend Bill's, and he's in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking to this friend on the telephone, this friend of Bill's, this gal who's always calling Bill to chat on the phone, and Bill said to Gil, "Here, take the phone for a while. I'm tired of talking to her." So Gil took the phone and said hi, and Becky said, "Hi, my name is Becky. You going to New York? I have a friend." Or not like that, because Becky would like to chat and chat and chat and chat. Anyway, the ultimate result of that conversation was, I'll tell you the name of a friend of mine who is going to NYU, and if you're going to New York, to Columbia, you'll be in New York City, and so will she. So I'll give you her name and telephone number. And she did. And he put his name, the girl's name and telephone number on a piece of paper, put it in his sports shirt, and went on his merry way to New York City. He was wearing, in those days, the guys were wearing, those wonderful wool plaid shirts. You didn't wash and wear them. You wore them, and then you took them to the cleaners. Anyway, he took the name and address or telephone number of Becky's friend, put it in the pocket of his shirt, and sometime later, when it was time to take that shirt to the cleaners to be cleaned, he found this piece of paper with the name and address of Diana Werner in Passaic, New Jersey. Well, where's Passaic, New Jersey? My God. Anyway, stuck it back in his pocket, took it again, and thought, well, I don't know anybody here in New York City, and this gal, Bill's friend, gave me this name, so I'll call. So he called. And so it was a Saturday night, and the phone rings, and Diana is here with her baby sister, younger sister, who's going to her first prom in high school. And Saturday night, and he's calling this number asking for Diana Werner. And in those days, Diana Werner was kind of a popular gal, and dated a number of people, not this one and that one and that one. And so he called Diana and he said, Diana, may I speak to Diana? And I said, who's this? And he said, you don't have to be sassy about it. He said, I got the Diana's name from somebody named Becky in Washington, D.C. So I said, well, this is Diana, but I said, I'm not the kind of person or girl that you can call and say hi on a Saturday night and try to visit on the phone. I said, my baby sister is getting ready to go to, look at her eyes. Shh. Poor baby.
How do we turn that thing off?
No.
Okay. No, not the baby. That wasn't the baby. That was Zoe's toy. Go ahead. Not turn off Rapallo.
All right. So I said, I can't talk to you. I'm helping my sister get ready to get for a prom, and nobody else is here ready to help her, so I can't talk to you. And he said, well, you don't have to get snippy about it. I only called to say hello from your cousin Becky. And I said, well, I'm so sorry, but I really can't talk to you. I said, can I get in touch with you, or can you call me at another time? And I said, well, he said, I understand you go to NYU, and if you're going to be in New York to sign up for this coming semester, can you call me in New York? So I said, okay, if it's Becky's friend, I'll call. So it was in the middle of the semesters, and about a week or so later, when I went in to register for the following semester, as a courtesy to my cousin Bessie, I called from New York, because New Jersey was a long-distance call, and I couldn't afford long-distance calls. So I called from New York, and I said, this is who I am, and this is Becky's friend, and I'm sorry I couldn't talk to you then, but I want to welcome you, and that's that. And he said, I'd like to meet you. And I said, well, I don't really accept, I'm just going to have to meet you, because if you're my friend, my cousin Becky's friend, the only way I can meet you is you come and visit me in my house, in my home when my parents are home, and we'll have a meeting of a proper meeting. We'll meet properly.
Mm-hmm.
So we made a date for him to come to visit me, and a week or so hence. And here's Zoe. I hear Zoe. Anyway, he came about a week later, the date that we had established.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, my father was home. It was proper. You don't meet anybody hither or thither. And I said, come in, and you're Gil Jacobs, and this is my father, Rabbi Werner, and you can... If you want to go into the study, I'll introduce you to my father, and you can talk. And so my father took him to his study, which, by the way, he, the family was renting, always rented, never owned a home. In those days, people rented houses to live in a lot, especially in towns. This is my father, Rabbi Werner. Here he is in his study. This is Gilbert Jacobs from Montana and also from Washington, D.C. And here's my dad, and sit down and visit. And I was reading right next to that door, that room. I'll tell you that living spaces, in those years, people mostly rented apartments to live in cities, and